Our family motto is Quinns don't quit.
This is Chase Quinn. We're all shaped by people who probably don't realize how much they've shaped us. A parent, a coach, a teacher, a quiet family motto that somehow becomes a part of who we are. For my nephew, Chase Quinn, that motto was simple: Quinns don't quit. What began on the ball field with his father has grown into the way he coaches, the way he parents, and the kind of man he's becoming. This isn't really a conversation about sports. It's a conversation about what we pass on, often without realizing it. I'm Steve Harris, also known as Rivers, and this is the Grandpa Channel. Stories that connect us all. Because someone else's story has a way of helping us understand our own. Let's listen. We have a really terrific guest. I've known him for a long time. And
Yep.
spoiler alert, he's my nephew, and Chase Quinn. And Chase, welcome to the Grandpa Channel. And
Thank you.
I played a lot of baseball when I was a kid. And my dad was my baseball coach. And he was terrific, but he was really hard on me. And I
hmm
learned so much from my dad. I was playing second base as a 9-year-old, and here comes this screaming grounder to me that had a little bit of topspin to it. And
mm
it hit the lip of the infield. I just froze, and it hit me right square in the throat. And I went down like a sack of cement. And the only thing I could hear him say was, "Shake it off, Steve, shake it off." And those are pretty icy words to hear. If I remember correctly, your dad, who's a wonderful dad and just a great person, he was your coach for a while too.
He was. He coached me in quite a few sports growing up.
Was he tough on you or tougher than he was on the other kids?
Yeah, it's funny. I laugh with my sister and I say, if you ever want to see the coach's child, it's the one crying. Usually the dad or the mom are the hardest on their kid. I think
Yeah.
inherently parents expect a lot from their kids.
Reflecting back on when your dad was your coach, what are some lessons you learned from your dad as a coach?
Yeah, our family motto is Quinns don't quit. We have it on our we had my mom had it printed out and put it on our refrigerator growing up. That's how we live. We don't quit. My dad taught me so much in sports, how to be dedicated to a sport, right? If we start it and we don't like it, we still finish it. We finish out the year, and he taught me sportsmanship. I remember one time it was a very close game. It was a basketball game, and I don't know, we were either down or up by one or two, and the other team was shooting free throws, and I was lined up to get the rebound, and I began clapping loud to try to distract the shooter. And my dad just said, "Chase," and I looked at him and goes, "We don't do that." And yeah, we don't do that. That's not good sportsmanship, right? You don't see the NBA pros or college clapping to try to distract the shooter. They leave that to
Yeah.
the fans. So he
Yeah.
taught me, look, we do it the right way. We're proud of it, and that's how we play games, and that's how we live our lives.
That's a great lesson. And I love the motto of Quinns don't quit. Now, have you had some really great experiences that leads to kind of your passion for coaching?
Yeah, so like I said, my dad coached me all the way growing up, and I just knew I wanted to coach. And in the back of my head, I thought every dad and everybody wanted to coach. And so when I first signed up to coach, I said I'll be an assistant coach just to get my foot in the door, like any way I could. And they
Yeah.
were like, "Oh, we need head coaches like really bad. So you're just gonna be a head coach." And I found out
Yeah.
that they need coaches, and that was actually a surprise to me when I first began coaching my daughter. I really genuinely thought that dads would be lining up to take over these teams, and what I found was there's quite opposite. People are either nervous or concerned about coaching, and I dove headfirst in, and I've absolutely relied on coaching experience I've had in the past. I had coaches who've changed my life throughout football in high school, and coaches who I'm like, yeah, I want to emulate that. I want to be a leader of young people, and it's great because you can really bond with your own children in ways that in other ways you really can't, right? On the field, there's something to be said about physical exertion that brings teams together, and when you're
Mhm.
coaching that, you're able to bond with your kids in such a great way. And I'm careful to be really positive, right? I'm not always jumping down their throats or after games trying to correct them. I love watching you play your sport. I love watching you play basketball. I love watching you play soccer. And then there's time for coaching. And so, yeah, absolutely. There's been coaches in my life who've changed the direction of how I want to operate. And I think lessons learned out of sports are immense.
I do too. Given the right situation, a sports team, especially if there's some success involved, or you
Hmm.
start out crappy and then you build upon,
Yeah.
they're just lessons that you can't get really anywhere else.
Yeah.
Um, what has coaching taught you about life?
I think it's meet people where they're at. And as a coach, I've got to meet them where they're at and help them grow. And so I have a three-prong approach to all my teams I coach. It's we stay
Yeah.
safe, we have fun, and we get better every week. And if we can do those
Mhm.
three things, we've been successful in our season. The life lesson there is meet people where they're at, know what they are capable of doing, and then help them achieve more than what they thought they could.
I think those three things are really very applicable in many other situations in life too. You've had some varied experiences. You're still a young buck, but you've had some great experiences in life. What are some of the lessons, the tough things that you've learned from life, maybe that have knocked you on your butt,
Yeah.
and and really kind of sent you for a loop?
Yeah, my wife and I laugh often about the things we said before we had kids. Like, oh, my kid would never throw a tantrum in Target. My
Yeah,
kid would never hit somebody, not my child. And then you
yeah,
have children and you realize you have zero control over
yeah,
what they do and how they operate. And so
yeah.
patience is a lesson that I continually learn from my children. And it's so funny seeing the world through their eyes, right? You recognize they're seeing this all for the first time, and so they don't know why they can't drink grape juice on top of our sofa. And so
Wow.
if you kind of back up and say, okay, for they're experiencing this all for the first time, and being patient, and I know we've discussed this before, but every child is different and every curveball comes in differently. And my daughter's very strong-willed, our first one. My son is more laid back, and then we got hit with twin boys that are 19 months old, and we doubled our family in one fell swoop. And that's a whole nother level of patience while sleep deprived. So I think patience, it's something I'm still working on.
Are there lessons that are specific to twins that you've kind of noticed?
So they're at that kind of thing one and thing two where they bounce around the house and mess everything up, and then finally you get them down to bed. But yeah, no, when we found out, it was a really sweet experience. Marissa actually had an inclination before we'd even gotten pregnant that these next ones would be twins. So we had
Really?
been really praying about whether or not we should move forward with the final pregnancy. Marissa gets really sick, as many women do, and we really put it to prayer. And she felt that we're going to have twins if we move forward, and we decided to move forward in faith. And it has been such a blessing to have them. We don't even know what life would be like without them, right? We don't. I don't remember what it was like to not have Booker and Maverick bouncing around the house.
So I have kind of a cheeky question to ask you. Have
Yeah.
any of your kids had breakdowns or explosions in Target, or are you raising perfect children?
No, no, they're perfect. No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely. No, we've had meltdowns in public, and I'm just like, I know there's some married couple without kids looking at me like my kid would never. So no, it is what it is, right? Kids are volatile, to say it for lack of a better word. We are working on our own emotions and our own patience. People say this all the time, but it really is scary how much you can see your kids in you, like you and your kids when they yell. I'm like, oh, I say that. I've yelled just like that. And now Hank's yelling back at me, right? Or Odessa's yelling
Yeah,
right back at me. And I
it's
can just
karma.
see, like, yeah, she's mirroring and copying what she sees and how I operate. So
Yeah,
if I'm under stress, if I'm upset and I'm mad and I'm yelling about getting to bed and brush your teeth and going to bed, and then they get stressed and they get tired,
right.
they're gonna reflect that right back to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's difficult, but Marissa and I both working on our own patience and trying to operate and control our emotions.
It's a very sobering journey as a parent. I
Hmm.
just think, you think that you've turned a corner and all of a sudden something happens. Kids have ups and downs. Parents have ups and downs too. As you've noticed other coaches, do you try to learn from some of their styles and things they do well? And then do you also learn from some of the bad things that some of the coaches do? What are some
Yeah.
of the things you've learned?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really much of a yeller. Yelling's really not going to get you much. My whole hope for these boys and the girls I coach is that they love the sport and they want to come back every week. And there's been some parents who have gotten after their kids after coming off the sideline. They'll be like, "Hey, what are you doing, man? You got to do." And
Yeah,
I say, "Hey, let me do the coaching. You
yeah,
just cheer on. You get the
yeah.
enjoyment of just cheering, and that's a great role to play. But let me
Uh-huh.
coach." And I love it. It's the best night of my week is coaching them.
Have you had some success, or I mean, success, I guess, could be measured in wins and losses, but when they're little, do you see some improvement? And I guess that's really the ultimate sign of success.
It is funny. We don't keep an actual score, right? But the kids know the score. They often will call it out. But it is an important data point to just say, hey, are we getting better? Are we improving? But the best way to do that is individually with each player. And I told them at the last game we had, I called them all over after the game, and I said, every one of you have gotten better than when you first showed up back in
Cool.
August.
Yeah. You've mentioned, and I know you too, that you're highly competitive and that you've achieved some success in playing sports throughout your life. And then I think one of the cool things about playing sports is being able to turn a lot of those things that you learned into wonderful work habits and hopefully healthy work habits and
Yeah.
ambition. What what lessons have you learned from playing competitive sports, Chase?
I think one of the most important things, and I really do pride my children on this because they actually do really well on the soccer field. They're very coachable. They're not very parentable. They do fight us on our parenting, but when it comes to coaching, they
Yeah.
both listen to what I'm telling them to do, and then
Uh-huh.
they strive to execute that in practices and games. Particularly my son, I've said, "Hey, we need to do X, Y, Z," and some of the boys will be listening and nodding their head, and they go out and they kind of do their own thing. But my son really focuses on what I'm trying to get done that quarter, and he does implement it. And so I think being coachable, and I've heard this before that one of the biggest deciding factors between a D1 and a D2 and a high school athlete is being coachable. Can you
Really?
change and adapt to what the coach is telling you to do? Because the
Right.
measurables and the athletic ability, a lot of kids have that, but can they actually do what they're asked to do? And so, to putting that into the real world, I have conversations with my boss and my managers, and when I was early in my career, I was talking to partners at my accounting firm, and being able to talk with them as an approach like I would when I was a high schooler, talking to my head coach and having hard conversations about my ability and what he needed from me and what I was doing on the field, or if I was missing a block or whatever the case may be, really translated well to those conversations. You listen, you take the feedback well, and then you're coachable, and you show your coach, or in this case, your manager or your boss,
Hmm.
what you've done to change to adapt to what they're telling you to do. And if you can
Yeah.
do that, like really, if somebody says, "Hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z," and you go out and do that,
Yeah.
then you fulfilled their exact need, and
Yeah.
that's what they wanted out of you. And if you can reflect that, it's huge in our career.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I
Was football your favorite sport growing up?
On a funny story about that. My
Yeah.
mom was nervous about me playing contact football, so I begged and I begged, and I was pretty young, and she came to me and said, "No, you want to play basketball? Basketball is your sport." And I think I was 6, and I looked at her and I said, "Mom, you can't run my life." And so she goes, "You're 6. I can, and I will run your life." So
Let me ask you this question. What lessons have you learned just from playing football?
The team aspect of football, I believe, is unique to really only football. A lot of sports, you can kind of have one star player and do really well. In football, you've got to have a lot of pieces to the puzzle to really perform well.
Do you look at coaching? Uh, I love coaches that almost view it as a spiritual calling, that they see their players and they see the potential that they have that can go out and make their marks on the world and be kind
Absolutely.
and helpful and everything like that. Uh,
Absolutely. No, I genuinely love my players.
mhm.
I am connected to them. I love hearing about what they're doing outside of the sport.
Yeah,
My kids are friends with their teammates, and I
right.
really genuinely care about them. And I'll even bring that further. I had worked with the youth in our church congregation last year for a couple of years, and that's another coaching experience and aspect, right? That you're not their parent, but you work with them.
Mhm.
You have youth activities that we would plan and execute, and you grow a sense of love for these youth, and you care about what they do with their lives, and you want them to push themselves, and you're invested in what they do, make them feel loved, and so that they would return and would come back to church. They would know that somebody misses them if they were to miss church or to not come, and or to miss them at an activity, and we made sure that they really felt that love from the leaders.
When your kids are 30, and I know that sounds like that'll never happen, but trust me, it does.
Yeah.
And they're talking about you someday, what do you hope they remember about you, Chase?
Man, that's a great question. One that'll probably make me emotional. I hope they just remember how much I love them,
Hmm.
that I really truly love them, and I did my best.
I think that's a beautiful answer. Before you head out, here's a question I'd like to invite you to carry with you this week. What is something someone quietly passed on to you that you're now passing on to somebody else? You might be surprised what comes to your mind if you just spend a little bit of time with that question. If you'd like to continue the conversation, we've created a guided journal called Until It Starts to Speak Back. Inspired by the conversations here on the Grandpa Channel, it's designed to help you discover the stories that have shaped your own life. Because every story has two stories, the one you're hearing and the one you are discovering in your own life. You can learn more, explore the journal, and listen to more conversations at thegrandpachannel.com. And before we go, I'd like to leave you with something we believe here at the Grandpa Channel. We believe we're all more alike than different. We believe every story has two stories, the one being told and the one it stirs in the listener's own life. We don't ask what made somebody successful. We ask them what made them who they are. Because the stories that shape us are the stories that connect us all. This is Rivers, signing off.